Dirty Wars by Marquise Brown, Jason Matarazzo, Denise Tarakshian, and Matthew Thomas. Not long after the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, the United States military began to carry out a series of attacks on countries in the Middle East in retaliation.
Instead of putting blame where it belongs, the United States instead decided to tell the public that these Middle Eastern countries were harboring these terrorists and needed to be attacked. Rather than going after the terrorists, we used these attacks as an excuse to go after countries that we had been wanting to infiltrate for a long time.
When the U.S. went to war in Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and other Middle Eastern countries, they assured the American public that it was in their best interest for the good of the nation. They also told the public that the citizens of these countries were oppressed and that the United States would be heroes for helping them.
Therefore, in order to get the public on board after the attacks on September 11, 2001, the government was misleading citizens so that they would be okay with going to war. By making the United States seem like heroes rather than invaders, the public would not feel ashamed of their government declaring war on countries that were left to their own devices.
However, this was far from the truth. Jeremy Scahill investigated the military actions of the United States in countries such as Somalia, Afghanistan, Yemen, and others where the armed forces conducted attacks on terrorists.
These terrorists were not always people who actually had ties to terrorism. Sometimes they were just suspected of being terrorists, and other times the military was given bad intel, making their operations difficult to conduct. Mistakes were made when this happened.
Scahill wanted to find out what kind of tactics the military was using because he had heard about an innocent family of people who had been attacked on the suspicion that they were harboring terrorists.
This family was one of many cases where the military targeted the wrong person or received bad information and subsequently carried out an unjust attack.
The family lost 2 pregnant women and 3 others in the attack. Through investigation and interviews with the family, he found out that the military command that carried out the operation was the Joint Special Operations Command, also known as JSOC.
JSOC was not known about at the time, but it had been around since the Cold War, known as SOF, or Special Operations Forces. The public was not privy to their existence due to their tactics and equipment used for their questionable operations.
In a stunning video captured by the family members, it was discovered that the JSOC operatives tried to collaborate on a believable story to report back to their commanding officers because of their careless slaughter of civilians. In the video, their voices can be clearly heard trying to syncopate a story in which they would be acquitted of any charges for a war crime.
It is clear that the soldiers involved in the operations knew that they were doing something wrong. If they did not, they never would have had the skills to make up stories to match accounts on what happened to make themselves seem innocent. By making up a story, they hid their wrongdoings from their superiors. In 2010, they even went under investigation for a special operation that left a British hostage dead and a shot-down Chinook helicopter. They carry weapons like HK-416 rifles, fragmentation grenades, and hellhounds, which are grenades designed to quickly kill everyone in a bunker, room, or cave, showing that their weapons and tactics reflect a highly lethal mindset.
After discovering the command center that the soldiers were operating under, Scahill decided to take a further look into their operations. By utilizing stories from victims and an anonymous source, he was able to discover the motives of JSOC and their motive to find and eliminate threats to America using any means necessary. At the end, the group turned out to be an assassination team capable of killing or capturing targets ruthlessly.
These assassinations were not right, but they are in the best interest of the United States. In order to take out those who would challenge America's interests, it was necessary to create a task force meant to silence those who would speak out against the United States. This is sometimes referred to as shadow warfare, meaning that the operations are covert and not made public so that morally wrong choices can go under the radar. In fact, their attacks became so commonplace in the military that one U.S. military official used to refer to it as mowing the lawn.
After finding out about JSOC's motives, tactics, and cover-ups, Scahill decided to do some more digging and investigate other attacks orchestrated by the team.
His investigations led him to Somalia, where he met with Idna Ade and Mohammed Afra Kanyare, Somalian warlords who were recruited by the United States to seek out America's enemies. Kanyare refers to Americans as masters of war, and says that though they were once enemies, he is now working for the United States to fight on our behalf in the war on terror. These warlords were once enemies of the United States, yet America wanted to use them to take out and police targets who were against the U.S. This shows the lack of morals the United States has when getting what it wants. America has sacrificed their ability to take out dangerous tyrannical warlords in order to use them as a secondary military unit. Scahill then travels to Yemen, where he interviews the father of Anwar al-Awlaki. Al-Awlaki was a United States citizen who did not agree with the United States' actions in the War on Terror. He sees when al-Awlaki was a sympathizer to the American cause post 9/11, and his transformation into a radical supporter of jihad against the U.S. for its war crimes.
Al-Awlaki was fed up with America and its selfish wartime objectives. He saw through the propaganda telling American people to go to war and was made a target because he went against the United States despite being an American citizen. As such, he should have been entitled to speak freely about the wrongdoings of the United States and their war on terror. Through his investigation, Scahill discovered that after 2001, the president gave himself permission to assassinate any U.S. citizen who might have ties to terrorists. Due to this, the drone strike that killed al-Awlaki was actually legal.
Despite being a citizen, al-Awlaki was made a target and killed because he challenged the United States. President Obama's attack on him was unjustified. The only reason for it was because he would have woken up the rest of America to the United States' criminal ways. Liquid warfare is a term used to refer to the unmanned aerial vehicles' help in organizing and carrying out these strikes.
Unfortunately, the United States was still skeptical about the threat of terror from al-Awlaki. However, this was not because of him, since he had already been killed. It was because he had a 16-year-old son named Abdul Rahman that could potentially follow in his footsteps.
Abdul Rahman was just a child, but the government feared that he would follow in his father's footsteps and seek revenge for the death of his father. Though he was only a child, he could one day become a threat and expose the United States' heinous murders against citizens of their countries and citizens of the United States, such as Anwar.
On October 14, 2011, while at a restaurant in Yemen, a drone strike ordered by President Obama killed Abdul Rahman. Not only was he an American citizen, he was also a child who was never involved in any suspicious or threatening scenarios against the United States. He was assassinated because the United States feared that he would grow up to be like his father, and they did not hesitate.
Both an American citizen and a minor, Abdul Rahman's assassination was a gross misuse of power taken to cover up a potential source of the United States' wrongdoings. There was not even a guarantee that this child would have taken aggressive action against the United States, but regardless, he was a citizen and just a kid, and should have been innocent until proven guilty.
Scahill reflects on the actions taken by the president and JSOC would discuss. When he goes to testify to Congress about the issues he uncovered, barely anyone came to see him. Finally, on May 2, 2011, Osama bin Laden was found and killed by a team of Navy SEALs. When the leader of JSOC, Major General Richard Shultz, testified, he and JSOC were praised for their actions and hard work. He was televised as a national hero as the face of JSOC, and the American people would think that their tactics were totally necessary to ensure the safety of the United States, even if they heard about the atrocities committed before Osama bin Laden's death.
JSOC was finally a publicly known military operations unit, only after finally getting something right. Their previous operations that went wrong or were unjust were swept under the rug in comparison to their help in taking down the person on top of America's most wanted list. They successfully tricked the American people on national television into thinking that they were the heroes of the war, when in reality their crimes far outweighed their rights.
After all of his investigations, Scahill discovers that the United States is too cunning to let their atrocious acts be recognized and made public. They control the amount of information that the American public had on JSOC and the laws allowing the government to assassinate even American citizens if they posed a menial threat. He comes to the conclusion that this is the new age of war, where large battles have been replaced by controversial tactic missions to suppress American enemies and to keep the public in the dark.
In the end, the United States was able to take control of Middle Eastern countries due to its covert operations and ability to twist the story in the eyes of the public. In a country where we value the rights of others so much, we have been swindled into thinking that we are helping the people of these countries, when in reality our government has implemented our military in a sickening way. The military is used for the profit of those in power, and laws and executive orders have been passed to make it legal for the commander-in-chief and military to carry out heinous crimes that would not be legal otherwise. They misperform their attacks and show no remorse, and attacks can and have been made on American citizens in order to stifle their words and keep these issues in the dark. They even negotiate with enemies and strike deals in order to add to their military assets in a secretive way. Despite the majority of the American people thinking that the United States is defending its people, the government and military are really serving themselves and committing whatever crimes they need to in order to get what they want. It goes against everything that Americans and politicians stand for when they speak in public. However, behind closed doors it is clear that they will do anything to anyone as long as it protects their interests.
Thank you for watching our presentation.